move on now to mediation. Yeah, so this case that I'm reading in Ahluwalia, it sounds pretty egregious to me. I mean, it's actually like the facts surrounding the conduct of the husband. Is mediation even possible in situations like these where you've got one partner who's strongly, kind of like domineering, like, I mean, can we even do mediation in these cases?
Very good question. And I know there has been and there is, and I believe it will be skepticism around using mediation for cases involving IPV,
Yeah.
intimate partner violence.
Mm.
However, there are many cases, in fact, more than people believe, that can and in fact should go to mediation in order to find a way to move forward and past the trauma of what they're experienced or experiencing. So there are a few very important elements. If there is a case that has IPV in as part of the fabric of it, it is important to ensure, first of all, that the mediator is well trained to recognize those elements. You have to do, and I know we've spoken in other videos about the screening, so a one-on-one screening with each individual before you enter mediation, because that is going to inform the mediation about all of these elements that existed in the relationship and equip, hopefully, that mediator to structure the mediation in a way that is going to be safe for everyone involved, and it's not going to spill into their relationship post separation. Also, it's not going to spill. We've had families, fortunately or unfortunately, who had to continue to live under the same roof post separation, and emotional abuse generally escalates post separation, close to separation, post separation. And we do work with families who are experienced that type of abuse. But in those cases, we have to ensure that after the screening with both individuals separately, we structure the mediation in a way that neither one of them, especially the survivor of that abuse, is not going to feel trapped in a forum where they will have to be making decisions based on fear of unpleasant consequences. So we
Hmm.
have to make sure that there are certain guidelines and consistent and constant assessing as we go through the mediation, as we proceed with the mediation, of all of these elements. If anything surfaces, to shift gears in a way that keeps the environment safe, and it moves forward towards the final stages. Another way that we also can structure the mediation, and this is oftentimes it's in a shuttle format. So when somebody thinks of a mediation, generally they think of a mediation all together.
Hmm.
Especially nowadays, we are in this virtual sphere we find ourselves in. So everybody is on the screen at the same time, the mediator and the two parties. And there's a facilitation of conversation, of discussion or negotiation. Now, what we also do in this kind of cases, we conduct a shuttle mediation. So, meaning that the parties are in separate spaces. We also ask them to be in separate physical spaces. So, even if they live under the same roof, if and when they proceed with the mediation on that day, we ask them to prepare, because conversations or discussions may escalate some tension. They are different than their general day-to-day conversations. So we have to be prepared. So not only that we ask them to be in separate physical spaces, but also have a cool off period after the mediation session. And also we conduct the mediation in back and forth in between two separate spaces, virtual spaces. So usually the parties in those contexts, they never see or hear each other, which makes the environment safer for the survivor to express and also to make decisions. In most of these cases, we also make sure that the survivor also has access to any resources like a social worker or a support person whom they may need as part of navigating the mediation and post mediation, because it's not just the day of the mediation. There are other elements that come into play as you mediate towards the final separation agreement. And also, oftentimes we include the lawyers. So oftentimes we ask them to have legal advice, not only legal advice, but also on the back burner, but also to have a lawyer present in the mediation, which again empowers the person to make sure to at least have the confidence that when they're making decisions, they are making decisions that are adequately supported. So those elements are very, very, very important. In fact, I get very worried when I hear, and Eva and I hear this sometimes from families who come into mediation and they say that other mediators have started the mediation directly as a joint session. And that to me is very, very concerning, because you will never, the people in front of you, especially if there is coercive control, especially if there is a subtle manipulation and financial abuse and things that one person may fear or has been experienced in fearing for their whole entire relationship. Well, that is exactly the opposite of the forum that they should be in, or that's exactly the opposite of a space where you could encourage someone to share what they truly experience, right? So you will never hear this, and that is why mediation not only exposes to someone to harm, but also you can imagine post-separation how this can unfold for the person who is being abused, right? So that in those instances, I believe mediation cannot start that way, right? Because we have to also remember mediation doesn't necessarily mean that once you do the screening for domestic violence, it used to be, but now it is intimate partner violence. I'm catching up with all the lingo,
all the terms,
which is good. I mean, it's good that we acknowledge, we learn, we grow, and we integrate them in our lexicon, but it is important to have the separate meetings, only because when you start the mediation, you already have an understanding of the dynamic. Also, you don't have to start the mediation. So that also allows the mediator to say, this is going to require judicial intervention. We cannot proceed this way, or this is going to require a different avenue, right? So that's why it's very important. It's critical to have that screening in the beginning stages with individuals separately, and then structure the mediation in a way that hopefully is going to provide a safe environment for everyone to negotiate, or gear them into a different direction.
I have a quick, it's interesting. Can I just have a question about screening? Because even in this case, I read the trial decision quickly, and of course, the trial judge accepted the facts of the wife over that of the husband. So I can see in other couples, the wife may allege that there's intimate partner violence, whereas when you talk to the husband separately, privately, the husband is saying she's exaggerating, or she's lying, or I never touched her, or I never threatened her. How do you go about figuring out who to believe, so to speak? Like, because the two, I mean, it's not so much, I think, even that people are lying so much. I think people have different perceptions. Like somebody, like if a husband raises his voice, it may be because he's upset and he can't help but raising his voice. But to a wife who's, let's say, 5'2", Like that could sound very intimidating. So she may read that as abuse, right? As sort of intimidation, coercive control. So, everybody has different perceptions. Now, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you determine who's telling the truth, so to speak? Oh,
That is a very good question. So the devil is in the details. Well, we structure the questions in a very, very careful way.
okay.
So our screening is quite rigorous, and it
Mhm.
should be rigorous for everybody. So we're
Right.
talking screening with an individual for about an hour, and the questions are very geared to understanding the underlying power imbalances, the communication dynamic, and what they're experiencing. So over the course of the screening, you do get a sense, and I'm not saying in either way that we are in a role of determining who's telling the truth versus who's not
It's
telling
not
the
your
truth.
job. Yeah,
That is not our role.
that's right.
Our role is to um, ensure that the lens that they are bringing at the table, their
Mhm.
perception, their view, is adequately supported, and make sure that their safety guards along the way of the mediation and the process, that essentially everybody is, their lenses can be very, very different, and it doesn't necessarily mean they are both right or they're both wrong. We just have to identify where there may be an issue and ensure that those type of elements are um, are um, are pro- are managed accordingly. So it's hard to answer the question because you're never going to be there in your role to make a determination whether somebody tells the truth, but you are going to be in a role to facilitate. And a screening doesn't necessarily stop at that 1 hour that you have initially with the individual, with one of the parties. Screening is consistent throughout the mediation process.
Mm,
So throughout the mediation process, you also observe how certain dynamics or certain responses are taken by one or both parties, and you test the territory as you move forward, as you move through the negotiations, because that really what we have to do: reframe and frame and make sure that we understand what their needs are. And then you will see that certain elements are more important to some than others. But um, I have to tell you, individuals who have suffered or experienced IPV, they have a very, very difficult time, and I think it is because
mm,
of how the justice system is framed. A very difficult time to express that they have experienced that. They have a very difficult time to share the details of the. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of guilt, and embarrassment. So that's when the screening and the mediator has to have training to make sure that when they ask these questions, these very, very complex questions, they
mhm.
are prepared to support the client, the party, but also as remain neutral to have a mediation that facilitates both of their needs,
Yeah,
right? To
that's
keep
right. Yeah, because as mediators, you're actually serving both sides. So I suppose in real life, things are not always so black and white. Like you don't always have just like one bad spouse and one spouse who's like an angel. Like I suppose sometimes different spouses may intimidate each other in different ways, maybe in different
yes,
issues. So I think so. I hear what you're saying. It's like it's not like a one-off screening, we're done kind of thing. Just as you're proceeding
continuance.
through the process, you're always very aware of the
Yes.
dynamics.
And
Oh, that's so cool.
you
Yeah.
have to be very aware.
Right.
Also, what we have allowed parties to do is um, during the mediation, so when we have the one-on-one screening with them, we tell them that during the mediation, if at any time,
Right.
They feel that their voice is no longer at the table, that they're shutting down, that things are going counterproductive. They have the ability to message us privately. So to me or to Eva privately, or send us an email privately to say, I need now to be in separate rooms, or I need now to take a break, or I need to shut it down for the day. So what we create here is an environment that where the individual feels they have control. So they can stop it and they don't feel trapped. They can stop it at any time. They can send us a message at any time. And we also assure them that we never call it. So we never say that whomever asked us to be in separate spaces or to shut it down for the day. We say as mediators, now we need to shut it down for the day, or now we need to take a break or move in separate spaces, whatever the case may be. So you work with your client in a way that not only you assess the dynamics and you assess continuously the communication, but you also empower the person who is less empowered to come to the table in a more balanced and fair way so that they feel now as close as possible in control as the other person. Subtle ways, but these give a lot of control to the person who feels that they've never had control in a relationship. Now they finally have some control. And we always have to recognize as mediators that, and we tell them that, we tell clients all the time that this is your process. This is not our process. So it has to be acknowledged by all mediators that we're not there. We don't have a stake in their game. We are there to make things as best as possible, reduce the harm,
Right.
and work with whatever we have at the table in a very, very controlled and manageable way for everybody. So that doesn't mean, that doesn't mean you have to shame or point or blame the quote unquote abuser. That's again not our role. Our role is to work with elements that are, and some elements are vile, some elements are horrible. And there are families or there are mediators who don't want to hear about it. They don't want to touch it with, a 10-foot pole. These elements, unfortunately, form part of a family's fabric that somebody has to deal with them. And lots of times, Eva and I have clients who have experienced intimate partner violence, and they come to us and they say, "Please, I don't want to go to court. I need this done in mediation. I need this done behind closed doors. I don't want my case. I don't want to see him or her in the courtroom. I don't want to pass by them in the courtroom. I don't want to see my intimate details online on
Right.
Canly." Right? I mean,
Yeah.
there is a lot of extra layers that that mediation can sort of safeguard for families who have experienced that. Doesn't mean we are approving what has happened, but we are helping families move past it in the least harmful way.
Really interesting that you mentioned that element of empowering the sufferer, giving the sufferer back the control, which I think would be something that may be a very new thing for them because if they're so used to being controlled, I think that if I were that person, I would probably give away my control just to avoid harm, just to avoid being beaten or or being abused. And I think this is so tricky, especially when they still live under the same roof. I mean, gosh. You guys have any recommendations that you would like to give vulnerable people out there right now? Do you have any like, advice as to where they should go for immediate help, let's say?
Um, any survivor of domestic violence needs to have or should have a community of support, however
Mhm.
they can get that community.
Okay.
Um, I think it's been mentioned here, instances of abuse are often increase when someone tries to leave a relationship. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that that should stop someone, but it's understanding, and that's the context for why so many people are afraid to leave those relationships.
Yes.
So what we tell people all the time is, if you can, reach out to whomever you can. A lot of individuals in this position are cut off or estranged or just very easily removed from their friends, their family, their coworkers, etc. So at the very, very least, if they have access to a computer or a phone, they
Mhm.
can look up helplines.
Mhm.
Domestic
Okay.
violence helplines are really, really great because many of those domestic violence helpline websites, they don't show the history on
Mm.
your computer or your phone, or
Okay.
often it will come up as a different site altogether.
Mhm.
So it can be a safe way to access an individual to talk to. Oftentimes, people assume that those individuals are there to talk about counseling and to counsel you through it, but they can be there to help you arrange resources for your local area. So you can call a Toronto helpline
Right.
and they can help arrange for, a shelter or a social worker in, Midland, Ontario. That's
Mm.
a great idea. Any spaces that the survivor can get alone where they can access these resources. For example, if they can go to the library,
Yes.
places that don't seem to their abuser like they are, threatening or, going to yeah, a place that's going to be threatening to the abuser. But
Mhm.
something like a community center or a library where you can access um, autonomy a little bit easier is really important, right? And then it's often for many survivors a slow build. Not every survivor does it happen overnight. I always recommend that if a survivor is going to make an attempt to leave the relationship, that they do look into having a lawyer, a family lawyer assist them. The family lawyer should have experience in domestic violence cases, and you
Mm.
can ask the family lawyer that in the consultation. Places like Luke's Place,
Mhm.
who's an intervener in the Ahluwalia case,
Yes.
as well as the Barbra Schlifer Clinic.
Mhm.
Those are really good places in the GTA that a survivor can go to for resources, and they often have lawyers, family lawyers, that can give free consultations, that can do reduced fees. So, and then once a family lawyer is assisting you, they have a lot of resources. So,
Mhm.
for example, they can ask for a civil restraining order. You don't have to go to a restraining order for the police. They can go to family court and get you a restraining order, which is, different evidentiary basis. But a lot of people don't know that. They can arrange for you to have a police escort. You can arrange it too. Anybody can. But you can arrange for a police escort to help you pack your stuff.
Wow.
Um,
I
there
didn't know
are,
that.
yeah, pack your stuff and leave. There are also, there is a remedy. There are many remedies in family law if your home is not safe, right? Including the exclusive possession of a home. But those things can be very tricky to do on your own.
Yes.
So if you have the family lawyer, if you're able to get, therapist, family,
Mm.
any kind of support, but specifically to navigate the legal system, a family lawyer with experience in domestic violence, um, it can be done. You can leave and you can leave safely.
Thank you so much, Eva, for that amazing, that wonderful advice. Yeah, because actually, Laura, do you have any last words before we go?
Well, just given that intimate partner violence can also translate into financial abuse,
Yeah.
sometimes access to a lawyer or
Mhm.
a therapist may be
Okay.
just not there for them,
Hmm.
and that is part of this case as well, right? Like the access to
Right.
justice. So there are, I think, legal aid. Ontario offers free consultation for survivors in family law matters, and the family court actually, they're the family court program. So any family court in Ontario, they can just walk in and they have help on site, and then they also have help for the family court and also assistance with the restraining orders that Eva was mentioning earlier. So some information above and beyond the Luke's Place and also Schlifer Clinic that they may access.
I didn't know that they had that available at the
There is
family
help
court.
on in the family courts. They have a program, Ontario Family Court Support Program. So there is a program
So even at
that
the Ontario Court of Justice, even at the lower sort of level, the Ontario Court of Justice, if you walk in, would you find this service? Like, I guess you could just,
I think I only know about the family courts.
oh, the
So
family courts, right? Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But I like the idea. I mean, first and foremost, what Eva is mentioning is very important, that it doesn't happen overnight. And oftentimes we hear people, why did you stay? Why did you just leave? Why could, and this is the problem. This is the problem. And with our societal view, and if the legal framework is going to deny the realities of IPV in family law and acknowledge it, then this will continue. This problem will continue, unfortunately, right? Because there is a lack of consideration and a lack of acknowledgement that this doesn't happen overnight, cannot happen in one isolated or three isolated incidents. This happens in a cumulative manner over time. And for that person to be able to leave, there has to be a plan in place. There's all of these resources. But if you are in a setting where you have been isolated from your network, from your family, from your friends, it is very difficult. Or even from a phone, your phone can be monitored. Cameras nowadays with our technology is just, cameras are everywhere. We have families who come to us, individuals in a family, saying, I'm not sure if my home is bugged post separation, the matrimonial home. I mean, these are serious things that have to be taken into account when someone is planning or thinking of leaving an abusive situation, because there are so many factors that come into play that may seriously harm that person just getting up and going. So pointing and shaming, I would like to leave it with others. It should never be a question of why the person who has experienced IPV didn't just pick up and leave. It's not that easy. It's not that easy.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree. Eva? That's
Yeah,
it?
no, yeah, I think Laura summed it up well. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you both for coming in today to talk about this difficult subject. Thank you everyone for watching. And just a reminder again, you can watch the live hearing remotely from your laptop, February 11th to 12th at 9:30 in the morning. And the link will be in the description box below. And thanks everyone. And we'll see you at the next video. Bye.
Bye, thank you.